Hey crafty people, I'm Sarah, also known as Craft Nerd because I'm a nerd who loves to craft. Over the years I've dabbled in most types of crafting, although for the past decade or so I've been doing primarily card making and mixed media art. I've recently embarked on a junk journaling journey that I hope you'll join me on. Welcome to part 2 of our Halloween Cloche mixed media project. Today we are going to work on decorating the tombstones and the gate and fence pieces for the finished project. Let's get crafting! I also coated my a bunch of toothpicks in black gesso that are going to serve as the rest of the fence with our Idea-ology gate. Now, what I want to do is add some rusty bits to the gate. So what I'm going to do for that is I've got some black gesso still on my mat, and I've got a new thing of Liquitex natural sand. And I'm going to open that up and grab a little bit of that to mix into my black gesso. And I'm going to mix the two together. Now, if you're not familiar with natural sand, it's basically, it gives a medium grade sandy texture. So you can mix it with acrylic paints and powder pigments to give it color. And it's a thick gel, matte, and I'm pretty sure it dries fairly translucent if you don't add color to it. But I'm adding the black to it, and it's just going to give me some texture when I apply it to the various pieces, because rust is kind of gritty. So I'm going to just dab some on here and there on our fence, and we're going to come back and add paint to it later. So am I doing that on screen? So I'm just kind of, I don't know that I'm going to do all of it, but actually I may. Definitely not worried about getting an even coat on here. I'm just kind of dabbing some on, and I definitely want a few spots where it's thicker. And I'm going to set that aside to dry, and I'm going to do it on the other piece. Now, if you don't have natural sand, you can use Tim Holtz texture paste. Should work. Actually, it probably, you're going to need a grit paste from Tim Holtz to have the texture you need in it. I have a jar of Tim Holtz distressed texture paste. I just haven't actually opened it yet, so I'm not sure what it's like inside. Another thing you can do is if you have sand, you can add sand to gesso. Also, if you don't have black gesso, you can use just black acrylic paint. So yeah, as you can see, I'm just kind of slathering some stuff on, because we're going to add paints to this later. So it's definitely an uneven coat. And I'm going to do the same to my toothpicks. And I don't have to cover all the way to the bottom because these are going to get stuck in the ground as fence post. And I've got a dog who desperately wants to go out, so I will be going to do that and doing cleanup here in a sec. Because yeah, when you do something like this with the texture paste on a paintbrush, you definitely need to give it a good cleaning afterwards. I'm gonna go let a dog out and clean up my paintbrush and I'll be back. So I want to grunge up our tombstones a little bit. And what I'm gonna do is start by adding some distress crayon in black soot, just to kind of grunge up the areas a little bit more. So I'm just gonna rub it on in a variety of places and then wet my finger and move it around a bit. Now, if you don't have distress crayons, you can of course do this with some watered down black paint. This is one of those things, I picked up the crayons and I hardly ever use them, so I'm trying to be better about using my supplies these days. So I'm just going in and rubbing it around with my fingers just to dirty this up a bit. Adding a little water to help get it moving. Definitely getting my fingers all kinds of dirty here. So yeah, I definitely like that a little bit better. I've got the old distress stencil brushes, so I'm gonna come in and try and get it further down into crevices. All right, so I need to go wash my hands off because I think I'm just re-adding the stuff that's on my finger instead of moving stuff around. So I will be right back. All right, and I also picked up the Halloween remnant rubs, which you may still be able to find, but I don't believe they've come back this year. And so I'm gonna grab 2 of the punny tombstone-y grave marker things. Cut those out, trim that down. So we'll do I'm a Goner and Noah Escape. That will go there. This one will go here. Let's just trim it down a little bit more to make it easier to fit into place. And I also may grab decorations for the top from here because it's got all sorts of little bits and bobs you can add. Yeah, we'll do that there and that there. All right, so let's go ahead and put these on. Try and do it somewhat straight. And it came with a little popsicle stick to rub on. Very weird. All right, I'm gonna try a pencil. Pencil usually works well too. Okay, I'm almost on there. Okay, I've got Ima on there. Let's see if we can get the rest to go on. Now we've got part of the year on. Sorry if my head's in the way. I'm just trying to press that down. All right, let's try again on this part. Okay, I got it all on there. Figure the broken upness of it is acceptable because it's, you know, an old tombstone, so it's not exactly going to be pristine anymore because, yeah, that did not go on as smoothly as I thought it would. That one went on better. All right, so we've got I'm a Goner and Noah Scape. Oh, I love a good punny tombstone. All right, let's do that first and then try getting these. Let's pull it up slowly, see. Oh, almost got it all on for the Noah. All right, there we go. That one went a lot better. We'll put the little decoration on the top. That went on pretty good. All right, so we've got our No Escape and I'm a Goner. And now what I'm gonna do is grab my grit paste Crypt, and I'm just gonna use my finger, and we're gonna add some of this because it'll look a little bit like moss growing on the tombstone. So we're just gonna add some to add a little bit more detail. All right, what I'm gonna do is use a palette knife to get it out and my finger to apply it because I do not want it up my fingernails, which is what's gonna happen if I keep trying to stick my finger in there. So I'm just gonna go around and anywhere I think moss might gather on our crypt or our tombstone, gonna add a little of the crypt paste. All right, so I'm gonna set that one aside to dry. I'm gonna do some on Noah's tombstone as well. And we're gonna just set that aside to dry. So I wasn't thinking about the fact that I applied Distress Crayon to this, and your texture pastes will all kind of suck up any distressed product that is water reactive. So if you put grit paste over the crayon, it's going to pull up a lot of the black from the black crayon. So what I'm gonna do is add a little bit of crushed olive Distress paint to my grit paste because yeah, it's kind of blending in more than I want it to. And I just, it's brand new, so I'm just gonna use the top for it. And we're just gonna add a little bit. And I'm gonna kind of brush it off a little bit because it's a little more intense than I want. But because it is distress paint, until it's dry, it's water reactive, so we can go in and dilute it and get it to more of the mossy color that I was kind of hoping for. Just gonna kind of go along where I've got the grit paste, do a combination of painting it on, adding water to dilute it, and there we go. So we're going to just do that for all of our so yeah, I like that a lot better. It's showing up much better on there that we've got mossiness going on. So we're going to do that to I'm a Goner as well. So there we go. These are our 2 gravestones. I've got a set of tiny lights that I am going to use on the piece, and I'm going to kind of have the ground kind of glowing mysteriously. But I figured the best way to disguise it would be to create a tombstone for the tiny lights to sit in between. So we're just gonna grab a pencil, kind of trace around them. And I'm gonna go kind of a little bit bigger because I want them to be hidden. And I'm gonna cut out that side. And what I'm using here is a comic book board. Just gonna kind of trim out our little tombstone shape. So there. And then I'm gonna cut another one out. Pretty much just use this one so that they match up. So the tiny lights will go between, and so what I'm gonna do is just making sure they fit. Cut a couple strips that are, let's see, this is, how thick is this? This is about a 1/4 inch thick. So I think I'm gonna go 3/8 so that it'll slide in and out easily. So we're just gonna cut off a couple strips of this at 3/8 of an inch. Or probably a little thicker because this does not measure to, all right, wait. Yeah, we're probably gonna end up going a little thicker because at first we're gonna square this up. Then we are gonna trim it off at the smallest mark on here that I can measure. And they're not entirely even because it's kind of floating it while I cut. So we're gonna just trim those up. Let's see, is this gonna be too, actually it probably will work. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get these trimmed even. We're gonna take our 2 pieces of tombstone. We're gonna glue on one side, and we're just gonna cut off about there. And we're gonna use our glitter glue to glue this on. And because we want the lights, the strand bit to go off to the side there, we're gonna leave a little gap. So we're gonna cut this piece over here a bit shorter. Okay, so for our tombstone, that is gonna hold our tiny lights switch, what I'm gonna do is glue some toothpicks inside our tombstone so I can use it to stab it down into the styrofoam to hold it in place. So just gonna add a little bit of glue, and I'm using art glitter glue for this because why not, and it dries fast. And do this one. And it doesn't even matter if they're exactly even because I can just poke one further down into the styrofoam than the other. So while that's drying, we are going to add a coat of paint to our tombstone. And I'm grabbing Hickory Smoke and Pumice Stone Distress Paint. You can use whatever gray paint you have. So I'm gonna kind of do a mixture of the two without fully like mixing them. I'm just gonna add them both on to give us kind of a mottly gray color. And I'm probably gonna need to do 2 coats of this. That's all right. I'm gonna paint the whole thing, including inside. All right, and I'm gonna have to let that dry before I go any further. Okay, so I'm gonna work on our fence posts and our gate, and I've pulled out my DecoArt Media Fluid Acrylics. These are very loose watercolor acrylic paint, and I'm grabbing English Red Oxide, burnt Sienna, some raw Umber, although that bottle's about dead, Quinacridone Gold, and a little Cobalt Teal Hue, which I know seems strange, but rust tends to have a little bit of like bluey green in it. And I'm gonna grab a paintbrush, and I'm gonna start with some Quinacridone Gold. And this is the technique I used I did a video where I did gears. And so I'm just gonna kind of dry brush on various spots. So pretty much you need like a reddish color. That's our, with a little bit of brown to it. I don't know how well it's showing up on the screen, but pretty much I'm dry brushing all over the whole thing. So dry brushing means I'm just putting a little bit of paint on my paintbrush and going over everything. And I need a little bit more for my fence posts. I don't know how well you can see the color on there, and I can't quite tell. So now we're gonna grab some of the Cobalt Teal Hue. Whoa, and that's splooged out, so that's probably what we're gonna use. And I'm not completely cleaning my brush because I don't mind if my colors get a little mixed on here. And I'm gonna go in with a lighter hand and put a little bit of the hue in a few spots, not all over the place. And like that spot's a little heavy-handed. And we'll knock back a lot of what I've just done because you just want hints of the blue. You don't want a ton like that. I'm gonna take a tissue and just knock a little bit of that back. And now I'm gonna come in with some of the burnt sienna. It'll help knock back blue a bit. And now a little bit of the raw umber. And this is kind of one of those things you just play around until you like how it looks. So let me hold that up so you can get a better look at the colors. And now I'm gonna come back in one more time with, or this time with some Quinacridone Gold. Did I do the Quinacridone Gold last time? Or the orange, the English Oxide? I can't remember. I think I did the Quinacridone Gold. All right, we're gonna use a little bit more of that. Yes, yes. Just to brighten up a few spots. And again, this is one of those, you just gotta, no, I think I used the orange oxide, the English Oxide hue last time. So I'm just going to come in with some Quinacridone Gold. Add it in a few spots. And on a couple of them, I'm going to come back in with a little bit more of the teal that I still have on my mat with the orange on my brush as well, because that kind of mixes it in good. So yeah, this is a play around. When you get it looking how you like it, stop. And what I'm probably going to do for our fence posts is pull out a metallic paint, because you know there's bits of metal showing through on the gate, right? You can see I didn't cover it completely with the sand, so you've got bits of the metal underneath showing through. So I want to add a little bit of metallic to these guys so that they have more of a metal look than they do now. So I'm going to take a little bit of distress paint in Tarnished Brass and just put a little bit on, because a little goes a long way. And it'll help give it more of a metallic feel. And then I may come in with some of the Umber and just tone that down a little. So there we go. There's our metal fence, and then our faux rusty metal fence posts made out of toothpicks. So those just need to dry and they'll be ready to go on our piece. All right, we're ready for our second coat. And I think I'm going to add just a smidge of black soot to this as well, to just get it a little darker. Grab a paintbrush, kind of. Oh yeah, it just needed that little bit. All right, I'm going to have to re-glue that guy on. All right, I hit it with my heat tool because I want to do the next process. And so first we're gonna add a rub-on, which I probably should have painted these and then assembled so that it would be easier to do the rub-on. But it's too late now. Put that on sort of straight. And grab the pencil. Okay, that's on. Let's add our little skull and crossbones up here. Now what I'm gonna do is grab some Distress Paint Opaque and a Ziploc baggie, which this one's rather large, but I can't find my smaller Ziploc baggies right now. And what I'm gonna do is cut off the tip of my little Ziploc baggie. And we're going to add some details. I think I cut off too much of the tip. Oh yeah, that's way too much. I'm gonna shift the stuff to the other corner. I'm gonna cut a very small amount of the tip off this time. And we're gonna add some detailing around the edge of the tombstone like on the other ones. All right, we're gonna just leave that to dry. Add a little bit more in here. Woo! That was way more than just a little bit more in there. All right, we're gonna leave that to dry. But I'm also gonna take, while that's drying, hopefully not mess that up. I still have some of the texture paste mixed with the black. I have a feeling my opaque texture paste may be past its prime because it is not sticking on very well. There may be some gluing in its future. But there, I just wanted to give it some more texture than it had before the stuff dries out completely. So now that needs to just be left alone to dry fully, and we'll see where we're at, and we'll add more paint to lighten it up a little bit, and probably some grit paste to mimic moss on it like we did on the other tombstones. And we'll glue in the toothpick again, which I think I've been using. And I'm probably going to grab another toothpick. All right, so once everything's dry, we'll be back and do the finishing touches on our tombstone. Now I'm going to put the tiny lights all around. But first, what I want to do is, let's move our tree out. Let's take out our tombstone that we were working on last night and add a little bit of paint to it to lighten it up. So I got a little pumice stone and put a little hickory smoke on the mat again and do kind of like we did to paint it. And I noticed last night that the texture paste was coming up a little over here, so I added a little glue to that. And let's add a little bit of the black because it's a little too light. So I'm just gonna go around and touch up paint various areas on this guy. All right, so I am also gonna glue another toothpick on the inside front just to give it a little bit more stability when I stick it into our styrofoam. Apparently stuck it in a glob of paint at some point. There, that's a little bit better. All right, so I'm gonna set this aside and let it dry completely before we put it on the piece. All right, so we're just gonna do one last thing on this guy, and it's add a little of the Crypt paste, Crypt. Again, I'm just gonna use my finger to apply some. And because we used paint on this and not crayon like I did to add some color to the other tombstones, this should dry with its mossy kind of color intact. So we should be able to just leave that dry and then assemble our piece. Yeah, I think I'm gonna add a little bit of the crushed olive paint to this as well. Just so that our mossy bits stand out a little bit more. Add a little water to get it moving around. And wipe some of it off. There we go. And since we didn't put a ton of paint, it should be dry enough that we can start final assembly on our piece. Yay! But final assembly is going to have to wait till the next video, which will be part 3 in the series. But I'm going to give you another sneak peek of what the final project looks like. So if you enjoyed this video, please do all the things that lets YouTube know you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment down below. Thanks for joining me, and happy crafting!